So the astrology of 2023, that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. What will happen in 2023 with a singular focus or a restricted domain of focus of the outer planets. And by that, I mean the modern outer planets, the Barbeau outer planets, the planets that astrologers in the 20th century kind of settled on as the outer planets. And that's Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, and then Jupiter, Saturn. So we're going to look at the transits of those planets in 2023 and start preparing for this year ahead. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be doing this video. And, I want to say as we start here, just that it's that time of year. Astrologers are getting into, and I'll click over to this first chart. This is what I'm going to start on, but the astrologers are getting in when we get to like November, December. We're all thinking about 2023, doing our look ahead. Some people start even a year before, but we do our look aheads, and I'm deep into mine. And I'll do a few videos because each thing I'm going to talk about here, each transit is itself a huge research project and could be multi-video series. And so that's the thing about with astrology. It's always cycles upon cycles, and each cycle has a story to tell and a kind of a richness to it. In this video, I'm not going to be able to do much of that. I'm going to go through quickly and just kind of give some high-level thoughts. And then again, it's only these 5 outer planets that astrologers call the outer planets in the second half of the 20th century, maybe first half of the 21st. That's all been obliterated now because we know about Makemake, Haumea, Eris joining Pluto. We have Ceres from 1801 when it was discovered. And so, we have this whole world of planets that I hope one day to do more work on, but we have to restrict somehow to have at least a container to talk about things. And that's what people want to hear. A lot of people still have the mentality of these 5 outer planets. And so that's what they want to hear. So that's what I'm going to cover. The last thing I want to just say as an introduction is that the big thing to understand is it's really March through July. That's the container here of time. And so there's the year can be divided into March, which is a continuation of what we're in now. Then you have a bunch of changes. And then by July, these outer planets settle into, well, there'll be for the rest of the year. And so a lot of the dynamic shifts are happening March through July. That might help your planning just as you begin to contemplate your life. So let's dive in. Let's go to the first transit. This will be in chronological order. First transit is the ingress of Saturn into Pisces that arrives March 7th. Will be a major, 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 major transit. And I just want to come back to these dates here. When did this happen before? Well, Saturn was in Pisces last in 93 through 96, and then last from 64 to 67. And then we can go back and back and back. 35 to 37, this was the Great Depression years, right in the heart of the Great Depression and the lead up to a world war. I think that's an interesting cycle. When you look at the 1930s, you have the 64 through 67, also very interesting. It's kind of the conservative 50s as they're giving way to the insane middle and late 60s, like the Beatles records. Just think about by the time we hit 67 and you get Sgt. Pepper. I don't know the exact month that Sgt. Pepper was released, but you have the early Beatles, and then they're like the psychedelic Beatles. That's the transition we'll be going through with the Saturn cycle here starting next year. And then you have the 93 through 96. This is one that's interesting because the Kurt Cobain suicide in 94. And I feel like that grunge was a response to the heavy Saturn energy, right, in the 90s, early 90s. And grunge comes out as a response. And then by the time we get to the Saturn and Pisces transit, it's like grunge sort of took over the culture, and we're into this kind of wild release out of that heavy Saturn vibe. And so here we go. And I think of our own time now with Saturn and Pisces, we had coronavirus crisis. Everything was locked down and shut down. We've had a difficult year in 2022 economically. I very much feel like we'll have some bursts out of some very interesting expansion. See, this is Jupiter influencing Saturn, and Jupiter will be ruled by Saturn and Venus in Pisces. So it's art and creativity that can soften up that heavy seriousness of Saturn. It's been 5.5 years in Saturn rule signs. Finally, we get to bathe and cleanse in these Jupiterian waters and Venusian waters for Saturn. So I imagine that my key word for this has been buoyancy, less seriousness. And I'm very much hoping for that over this next 3 years, and a lot of chaos. This is a chaos sign, and Saturn is a sign of boundaries and structures. And so you're kind of increasing the chaos quotient in reality. I think you can see that with this being echoed in the 1960s transit. So that's just my first transit here, Saturn and Pisces. Next, I want to look at, what is this here? Okay, let me go back. This is 23 March 2023. March is a banner month. Major shifts happen in March. And the second one is the first peak of Pluto in Aquarius. It's going to be wild. It's going to be insane. It's a long transit, 20 years. All of the air sign and Aquarian activation since the 1980s, when Saturn and Jupiter first conjoined in air signs, internet, computers, digitization, communication tech, all of that stuff is now going to have a 20-year Pluto transit to really bring out the core and the deep kind of profundity of it all. So I'm looking for major technological shifts, AI, obviously injectables. If you view Aquarius as a sign of medicalization, which I do, we're going to have all kinds of technological reckonings during this massive 20-year transit. But it's only going to be a few months in 2023, but it's that first ingress. And so the last ingress is in November 2024, is the final ingress. Look for what this may be feeling like, because these ingresses are sometimes very, very, very loud. So like the last week of March, all those Pluto and Aquarius themes are going to come flooding in. And let's see when this happened last. The one major thing I'm interested in is Pluto and Aquarius during the Revolutionary War and then the post-Revolutionary War America, as the Constitution was founded, the first president. All of the institutions that we still live under were formed in America, or that Americans still live under. I don't live there. But you have that part of like the birth of a whole new age in terms of the modern realm and the humanist constitution and these kind of modern concepts of rights and all of those things as they're embedded in governance. French Revolution, I think, is emergent at some during this time as well. And so we get repeats of all of that. And that ends again in 2044. So get ready, because things are going to shift and change. And it's all about technology, given that we're in this age of air with Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions. Okay, I'm not going to say much more. I'm going to release a whole video about Pluto and Aquarius with my friend Dan on his YouTube channel, World Astrology Report. That'll be out next month or so. So we're going to have a major deep dive. So look for that. And what are the configurations here? I think this first little sneak in of Pluto and Aquarius, you'll have Saturn and Pisces not able to support Pluto in terms of the help of its ruler. I do feel like there may be some disjointedness a little bit with Saturn in this expansive kind of large ocean of Pisces, and maybe Pluto's a little bit on its own here for this little sneak in 2023. Look for 2026, Pluto, Saturn and Aries. You get that nice sextile to Pluto and Aquarius. And then that Gemini transit later in the 2030s. That's the one I'm really interested in, because you have powerful Saturn again in an air sign trining Pluto in mid Aquarius there. That's when I really feel like Pluto and Aquarius will lock in majorly. And that's in the early 2030s at some time. I don't have those exact dates up. Okay. Not going to say much more about Pluto in Aquarius. Let me shift now. 16 May, next major transit on my list that I want to go over. Jupiter's ingress into Taurus. And, it's worth noting here, Jupiter will enter Aries on the day before the winter solstice 2022, and then it leaves Aries for good on 16 May, about a 5-month transit. It's just going to blow through Aries for this final time, and it will never come back to Aries. And so this ingress is Jupiter settling into its new domicile of Taurus, and it will be a full year there. And it's ruled by Venus. And this is part of why I'm interested in the culture in 2023, the arts and the creativity, because you have Jupiter in Taurus and Saturn in Pisces. They'll be forming this sign-based sextile. I'm going to talk about that later, but it's a lot of Venus being activated by these outer points, And if you add Uranus and Neptune in, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we include the nodes, which I do, I should have said that in the introduction. We're talking about 5 of these major outer points being influenced by Venus, exaltation ruler of Pisces, domicile ruler of Taurus. And then in a relationship between Jupiter being in Taurus and ruling Pisces. So I think we're very much involved in creativity as a theme of 2023, especially after May. I think this would be good for like feel good summer. Maybe it's not too intense in a certain way in the outer world. This feels to be more internal, like the party where you go to the art gallery and then you maybe get the, the drugs, the party favors or whatever. I'm a drug-free person. I don't drink or do any drugs, but it's just a metaphor here that, the feel good, more internal states like what is the Molly, I think is what they call it. I had one attempt at that and I never worked for me, and I never tried it again. But apparently that's a really feel good internal. You can take that drug and talk to people and open up and have empathetic exchanges. Remember, these are night sex signs. And so there's a moon Mars component to these signs. You're dealing with Venus, Moon, Mars as the triplicity rulers. And that's all about the internal connection and feeling and emotion and things we do at nighttime, right? Things we do when we're back in our homes. We connect with people. We appreciate beauty. We stand in awe of life. We watch a film. We paint. We write. All of those things are more solitary. And so I think the creative component is a major theme of 2023, and it kicks off in 7 March, and then it really deepens here on 16 May. Okay, I'm not going to say much more about it. I want to keep this video somewhat short and just keep moving fast. The other thing I just want to point out is that Jupiter was in Taurus 99, 2000. This was those WTO protests in Seattle, Battle of Seattle. They were not, they actually happened when there was a regress back into Aries, but they were planned all of that summer with Jupiter in Taurus. For June 2011, this was Occupy Wall Street. I think we're going to have truth and people wanting to find truth in a sign Taurus that can be really associated with the fixed Earth, right? What the ideas about Earth. Sometimes people with really fixed political attitudes come in through Taurus. And so to have Jupiter there, I think we can see some political resistance movements. Taurus ruled by Venus. Some folks like to put Venus with money. I prefer Venus with the things that money can buy. It's not the money itself, but either way, it deals with economics because we're dealing with the earth element. And the earth element's all about those economic resources. So truth with economics. Maybe there'll be another movement, a protest movement for economic justice. I sure hope so. Okay, next transit I want to look at. Oh, this is still Jupiter and Taurus. I did that delineation here a little bit, so I'm going to skip this chart. SJ here, what's up? So I recorded this longer video, about 26 minutes of the astrology of 2023, just related to the outer planets. It's too long. I'm not going to release a video that long. So I've chopped it into 2. There's going to be a part 1 and a part 2. And just keep that in mind. Part 2 will continue. I'll probably do it like 2 days. I'll release part 2, but just keep that in mind and enjoy this little series as you think about the outer planets. I think I covered in this video just up till May and that ingress of Jupiter into Taurus, major change because we'll have Jupiter in Taurus and Saturn in Pisces set now on this mid-May ingress of Jupiter into Taurus. So, okay, look for part 2 in a couple of days. Take care.